All right, today we are going to unpack a really important law here in Thailand, the 2007 Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Act. You can think of it as the country's official playbook for when things go seriously wrong. So let's get right into it.
It's a question, you hope you never, ever have to ask for real. But it's one that the country has a very detailed answer for. This law is all about creating order from chaos. It sets up a super clear plan and a chain of command that goes from the highest levels of government right down to your local neighborhood.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to follow the whole life cycle of a disaster response, just like the law lays it out. We'll look at why this whole thing was created, how the country gets ready before anything happens, who's in charge during a crisis, how the response gets bigger if it needs to, what happens after, and of course, what it all means for you and me.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Before 2007, Thailand's approach to handling disasters was, well, it was kind of all over the place. The response was split between different laws and different agencies. The whole system really needed a big rethink to make it more efficient and coordinated. First things first, what exactly counts as a public disaster? Well, the law defines it really broadly. We're not just talking about the obvious stuff like floods and storms. This covers everything from fires and droughts to epidemics in people and animals, and even things like sabotage. This wide scope is intentional. It's meant to be a catch-all shield for public safety. And this slide really nails the main reason for the 2007 Act. It took two older laws, the Civil Defense Act and the Fire Prevention Act, and combined them. It moved the whole country from a scattered, fragmented system to one single, unified strategy. The big idea here is simple. Bring it all together for a much stronger response. A good disaster response doesn't just happen the moment the sirens start wailing. Nope, it starts years before that with a ton of careful planning. So let's take a look at how that national safety blueprint actually gets made. Right at the very top of the pyramid, you have the National Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Committee, or in Thai, the Ga Pa Pa Chor. Now, what's really important here is who is on this committee. We're talking about the Prime Minister or a Deputy Prime Minister as the chairperson. This is not some low-level planning group, folks. This is the highest level of government, setting the entire country's strategy. So how does that high-level strategy actually make its way down into a local action plan? It's a really clear top-down process. The National Committee sets the big picture policy. Then, the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation drafts the master plan. The cabinet has to approve it. And from there, every single province has to create its own detailed plan that fits perfectly with the national one. All right, let's shift gears from planning to action. Imagine a disaster has just struck. The plans are all there, but who is actually in charge on the ground when every single second is critical? The law is absolutely crystal clear about this. The responsibility lands squarely on the shoulders of someone called the local director. The second a disaster happens or is even about to happen, they have to act immediately. There's no waiting around for a phone call from the capital. The duty to act is instant. So who exactly are these directors? This chart breaks it all down for us. These official titles from the law actually match up with government roles you probably already know. The local director is just your local mayor or the head of your sub-district office. If things get bigger, the district director is the district chief, and the provincial director is the provincial governor. It's a clear structure, so there's always a commander, no matter the scale. Now, to be able to act that fast, the local director is given some pretty serious emergency powers. And this is where the law gets very real. They can order not just officials, but also regular citizens like you and me to help out. They can take over private buildings, cars, and equipment. They can use any communication system they need to. They can order evacuations and completely seal off a dangerous area. These are huge powers, but they're granted to protect public safety above everything else. But what happens when a disaster is just too big for one local team to handle? Well, the law has a clear plan for that too. It's all about scaling up the response in a controlled, orderly way. Yeah, just think of it like a ladder. The response always starts at the most local level possible, with that local director. If they get overwhelmed or need more resources, command moves up a rung to the district director. If the disaster is so big it crosses district lines, the provincial governor steps in and takes command of the entire province. It's a really logical, scalable system. And right at the very top of that ladder, for the absolute worst-case scenarios, what the law calls an extremely severe disaster, the Prime Minister himself can take direct command of the whole operation nationwide. This is the final backstop, making sure the full power of the national government could be used when it's needed most.
Okay, so once the immediate danger has passed, the focus has to shift to recovery. This law isn't just about the crisis itself. It also gives a clear, structured path for people to get back on their feet.
So let's say you're affected by a declared disaster. What happens next? The process is laid out right here. First, officials will come and survey the damage. Then, they'll give you an official certificate that details everything you've lost. This paper is your golden ticket. It's the official proof you need to get government aid and other help. The system is also set up to help you with the small but really crucial stuff like replacing a lost ID card.
And check this out. This is a really important detail that gives people a real break. The cost to replace those vital government documents if they're lost in a disaster? Zero. Nothing. All the fees are waived. It's a small thing, but it's a huge help for people who have already lost so much.
Okay, so we've walked through the planning, the response, and the recovery. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. What does this whole legal framework really mean for all of us?
So when you put it all together, what this act really gives us is a complete system. It creates one coordinated plan. It tells us exactly who's in charge no matter what. It gives those leaders the power to make tough calls fast. It gives you a clear path to getting help afterward. And really importantly, it officially recognizes the huge role that volunteers and charities play in the whole thing. Ultimately, the law makes it pretty clear that a successful disaster response isn't something that government can do all by itself. It really depends on a three-way partnership. You need the officials to execute the plan, you need dedicated volunteers to provide that critical support, and you need an informed public that knows what's going on and how to cooperate.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. This law gives us the blueprint, right? An essential framework for safety and recovery. It puts the plans and the power where they need to be. But any framework is only as strong as the people who use it, support it, and take part in it. Which really makes you wonder, who is truly responsible for making sure our communities are safe and resilient?